Hi, my name is Drew Preston, and I'm going to be talking about how freedom of speech was challenged in the court case of Snyder versus Phelps. So, the First Amendment, which talks about, as our original source for freedom of speech, the First Amendment from the U.S. Constitution reads Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abriding the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So in this case, Lance Corporal Matthew Snyder was killed while serving as a Marine in Iraq. And in 2006, they had his funeral in Maryland. And at his funeral, Westboro Baptist Church, led by Fred Phelps, they picketed the funeral and had a quote-unquote peaceful protest about 100 feet away from the funeral procession. After the funeral, Albert Snyder, the father of the fallen soldier, saw the protesters on a local news station and read the language that they had on those protest signs, which he felt was a direct attack to both his son, him, his family, and the United States. He found this language very distasteful, and Mr. Snyder decided to sue Westboro Baptist Church for the distress they gave him through their protesting. So Snyder claimed that this language was verbally harmful to him from the picket signs, but this begs to question what defines emotional distress and how can it be protected by the First Amendment. So a history of Westboro Baptist Church, they throughout time, if there had been a fallen soldier or anything that was controversial regarding race or religion or gay pride, anything like that, they would find that these events were happening in the local news, funerals, or pride rallies, or whatever they may be, and they would go protest. So some of this language involving soldiers in America from this court case and past court cases includes language that have said from their signs, "Thank God for dead soldiers. Soldiers die, God laughs. Thank God for 9/11. Pray for more dead soldiers. And thank God for crippled soldiers," just to name a few of what their signs have read in the past. This type of language was very harmful to Snyder in multiple ways. First, his one and only son was just killed in combat. As they say all this hateful language towards soldiers, that felt like a personal attack to his son. And you can imagine, with his son fighting for his country, Mr. Snyder is likely very supportive of his country and of Marines, and very prideful in his nation. And these signs were not just an attack on soldiers, but also on the United States, as they reference a burning America. So he felt very attacked by this. Mr. Snyder, he brought 5 cases of action against the church. One of them, the court proceeded, and this was the intentional infliction of emotional distress. So with this attack that Mr. Snyder felt was coming towards him from the church, the question the court had to answer was whether or not the First Amendment protected the protesters who brought emotional distress to the family of the deceased soldier. And they also had to answer whether or not Albert Snyder could fully recover from the emotional distress that was caused by these protesters. So months later, the court took this case to trial, and Mr. Snyder won initially and was awarded $10.9 million, which the judge later lowered to $5 million. So not long after this, Fred Phelps and Westboro Baptist Church repealed the ruling, and eventually the case was reversed in the Fourth Circuit of Appeals. The judges decided that the protesting at this funeral was indeed constitutional, protected by the First Amendment, since the protesters did not interfere with the funeral. They protested 100 feet away, and even though the funeral cars drove by the protesters and reached about 30 feet away, they never interfered with the cars driving there or anything in the funeral ceremony. They stayed a distance away that the judges believed did not interfere with the service. The court also stated that they could not prove that the picketing signs were a direct attack on Mr. Snyder or his son or his family, since the signs did not specifically give names. So this was a big loss, obviously, for Mr. Snyder, because he felt like he specifically and his family were attacked through these signs, but could not prove that through the court. They could not find enough evidence to back them up, because they felt like if the judges felt as though if they were going to say that this was not okay for people to protest in this way, then that could have prevented many other organizations from protesting in a way they feel is free speech and that they're freely to say. Even if this free speech is not morally right to most standards, the judges felt as though it still should be protected under the First Amendment, as all people should have the right to freely speak what they believe in, as long as it does not literally harm others. And they felt like this harm was not specifically directed towards Mr. Snyder and his family. The only dissent from the judges came from Justice Samuel Alito, from which he stated, "Our profound nation commitment to free and open debate is not a license for the vicious verbal assault that occurred in this case." So even though the judges found the protesting constitutional from Westboro Baptist, Alito thought that though it can be protected, it maybe shouldn't be, since it was a way for this church to find ways to bring in hateful language and in a way that he didn't believe was appropriate. So he was the only dissent in this situation. Thank you.